Okay, I missed a part on my previous video in regards to offsets for boundaries and buildings. Now here's a classic scenario that I'll just run past in regards to offsets. So what we have here is a peg, which would be typically found on a job site if the fence, this fence here, was too far in on our side. Now it's 10mm in, so what would be on this peg would be a 390 offset, so you could run a string line from this peg to another peg that would be up there, exactly the same distance off the boundary, and you could measure your line for your footings or your excavations, and you know that the fence has to come down, so it would be something that has to be discussed with the neighbour and the builder. So that's basically the end of the offsets video. Okay. Next I'd like to talk about soil reports. Soil reports is evidence and fact finding after a geotechnician has gone to the block. In this case, pretend this piece of paper is an A4 sheet. You would have 3 bore marks, one at the back of the block, one in the middle and one at the front. And you would then be shown 3 diagrams of what the boreholes returned. At 600mm, for instance, you might find silty clay, so I'll just put silt. Then you'll find controlled clay, so I'll put controlled clay, and at 2 meters you might find rock. Now, because they found rock at 2 meters in this case, it doesn't naturally mean you are going to have to drill holes or dig footings or trenches to rock. The clay is a controlled clay, so it's at 900, so that's where your holes will have to be to. In this case, you would be putting piers in, say you'd take it to the 400 mark, so you'd be drilling your 2 meters and filling your cores up with concrete, 0.158 of a cube for 450 diameters, 0.28 of a cube for 650 diameters, and so forth. Done enough of these to know it. It is important to read the soil report. Sometimes it doesn't match the design and the classification of the slab or the footings, and that's when you can ring the builder and make some amendments. Okay, we had a situation only last week in Churnside Park where trenches had to be dug to rock. The house slab was designed according to what the soil report returned. Soil report said there was no traces of clay on the site. We turned up there, there's a 1.5 meter site cut already done, and we can see clay everywhere. We start digging, we hit rock at 600, we get to the center of the slab, and at 1.5 meters we're still digging for rock. But prior to this, we're halfway through the slab. We'd made phone calls at 7:30 in the morning to the builder to ring up the engineer, and the engineer was adamant that no, it must be on rock. We expressed our concerns in regards to digging so deep, 1.5 plus meters. We'd actually hit groundwater, and by the time the builder turned up, he had a look and he was astounded. I mean, we followed the plans and we'd already had phone calls back from the engineer saying no, you must hit rock. So the builder then in place took his time to ring the engineer, explain the soil situation, and then they made the change and the amendment around lunchtime to dig to controlled clay. But by that time, quite a few trenches had been dug at 1.5 meters deep. And this is where not trusting anyone and double checking makes you a better person and puts you in a safer position. Lasers and levels. I'm going to show you how to set up a stick properly, and that way there's give you a rough idea of what has to take place when you set up a stick. Now, let's say, for example, we have our pit at this mark. We'll make this our pit. So we'll make that a 0, okay, or I usually cross them like so. Sorry about the pencil mark. Now, let's say that the finished floor level is 300 above this pit, okay, so you would measure 300 from your mark, and you know that that's your finished floor level of the house. You're not interested in that, so we're not putting that in yet. Okay, 80 mil below that, 85 mil below that, if it was a 1 brick step down, you would have the finished floor of the garage. Okay, so house, F, F, L, garage, F, F, L. Now, that's concrete. They're concrete marks. But we don't want concrete. So, let's say you got 600 deep trenches, including concrete. So from the house finished floor to down here, that would be the bottom of your trench for the house. So put TH, then finished floor garage, bottom trench, you would have bottom trench garage. Now, slab top is 150, so you have 450 back up. From here, from this mark here, you have 450. And then from this mark here, you have 450. And this is your pad heights for the sand on that one. So sand house, sand garage, trench house, and trench garage. So you have 4 points set up. When you're working off the stick, you put nails. We'd usually put a nail in that line and a nail in that line and sit the receiver on top, and that way it guarantees you that you're always returning it back to the same point. There's no movement whatsoever. Now, you're not touching the trenches again, but you might need to touch the top. Let's say you have suspended steel. For suspended steel, you go up 25 mil. So some parts might be over 600-700 in trenches, which means you'll have to double steel it, which means your laser goes from that mark to that mark. And what that effectively does, up to go down, you're dropping the height of the pad so you can get an extra layer of steel on there for your recessed showers and all that sort of stuff. We work that out off the plan, and we usually go up 50 mil, which would be that for the area of the pad. So recessed shower would be there. Like I said, this stick looks a bit messy because it's not a proper stick that I usually set up. It's just as an example of what happens. Now, rather than shift the laser, let's say if the ground was too high in some spots and you're faced with doing a scrape or site cut in a certain part of the block because it wasn't done properly, if you were to raise the house, all you do is up to 100 mil. Some of our builders allow us, so we cut this off 100 mil. So imagine this stick in a vertical position. So at the moment your ground is there, say here. By effectively cutting the 100 mil mark, which is there, you're going to be raising the ground to that point, which could mean more dirt, more sand. It does have an effect on pricing and logistics for moving dirt, sand, etc. Be very aware you only do this in situations where you have permission from the builder, and it's going to save them time, you time, and both parties money, and not breach any building laws. There are height restrictions to buildings, that's why it's always a damn good idea to check with the builder before you make any such adjustments yourself.